I've been needing a router, and so I thought, well, I might just have to go to Harbor Freight and buy a cheap router. But then I thought, oh, $60 for the cheapest one and having to go there? What do I really want? I don't want a fancy new one. In fact, I want an old one. So I looked up a Black & Decker router, and boy, are they much cheaper. And let me do a little rant about how much more reliable they are. Paid $34 for this one, and it came with a manual. And it has something that really charms me. Lubrication. Permanently lubricated ball bearings are used in the tool, and periodic lubrication is not required. However, it is recommended that once a year you take or send the tool to a Black & Decker service center for thorough cleaning and inspection. Imagine that. A service center that can repair your tools for you. Granted, this thing probably cost more then than it does now, but still. This router comes from an era when anything from before the 1970s was going to be big and made of metal. A lot of those tend to be powerful, but they're heavy, and they also sometimes shock you. A lot of my power tools that are metal, all of the metal bits after about 50 years hold about 5 volts AC, sometimes 15 volts AC in operation. And if you go much above 15 volts AC, you get a real bad tingling sensation. I have a power drill from the 60s that, due to the metal housing, the metal gets electrified up to 30 volts AC, and boy, is that, you can't use it without gloves, and it has a weird burning smell. So then, after the 1970s, and before the year 2000, you have a period where there's a lot more plastic, but the plastic is used wisely. Look how this plastic hasn't broken yet, and it doesn't actually feel cheap. It feels useful. My favorite feature is this right here, the up and down. This doesn't feel like it's going to break. Granted, this is just solid ABS. It's not reinforced with fibers or anything, but this was from an era whenever they were just transitioning away from metal. And even though this may have been loathed for being cheap back then, it's better than what we have now. And with that perspective, I can see that I actually do love tools from the 80s and 90s for that fact. This was the other thing I was excited for, the mere fact that it came with the manual, and that the manual is easily accessible online. Now I understand there are different versions, but double insulation. Your tool is double insulated to give you added safety. This is actually a real thing you have to watch out for, as earlier ones, well, they weren't insulated so well, and you might get a bit of a spark in your step. I do love how this actually comes with a manual as well. It's very useful and concise. And it's funny, what I praise in this, probably, when this came out in 1983, was probably loathed as a step backwards. But in many ways I do see it as a cleaning up of things. Because you don't need to have everything be metal. It's actually nice to have some things be plastic. Plastic is a nice material. It's just you don't need to have it so cheaply made. And this does not strike me at all of a cheaply made thing. Black & Decker may have been a company at this point that was being gutted and all its quality slowly being sapped from it as the design slowly worsened. But I'm not actually sure of the history, but at least until like 1995 or 1998, their tools still seemed really reliable. My father has a Black & Decker circular saw from 1992 that is going fine until it didn't. But I think it just has an O-ring issue. Thing is, I can open it up and repair it. The newer drills that we have, such as the Milwaukees and such, I say that because I have a Milwaukee drill. Well, I always worry that once the microchips die in them, they're just going to be gone. And it's difficult to open it up and fully redo it. It's a very... it's just a different beast entirely. Whereas these are reminiscent of an older generation of tools, but they have a clunkiness to them that doesn't really inhibit the usefulness, and it makes it easier to repair. I love these types of drawings. It's like a McMaster-Carr catalog. I never knew that dado meant, it means something in Italian, but I didn't know, I thought that was a company's name. I didn't know it actually meant to like groove or whatever until reading this. Yellow pages. That's funny. But it's a shame that we don't have any repair centers. Just a real shame. And it's a shame that the products made today aren't worthy of being repaired. Whether or not that was worthy at the time, people might have said that it wasn't quite worthy and they were only doing that because it was expected. But there's the other thing. People expected the tools to be repairable. Now they don't. They're fine with this thing just falling apart and just throwing it away after a year and a half. But I'm not. And that's why I buy old tools. Because I want to have something that, first of all, I'm not paying twice as much for to get it from China, from Harbor Freight, when I know I'll never be able to have any repairabilities in it. Those routers I get, that I don't get, sorry, those routers that I do not get, I would never be able to really repair those. They would be disposable. This is not disposable. This router, the owner that originally bought this, I mean, he's probably dead by now. He was probably bought by someone in their 50s or whatever, and now that they're probably 80s, they could very well be dead. This has outlived the original purchaser. Any of those other things that I spend more for, well, more now, it won't outlive me. I'll probably only get good use from it for like 2, maybe 4 years. Whereas this thing, I plan to work it hard after I fully lubricate it. Even though the seal bearings are sealed, they don't stay sealed for long. But this, well, it might even outlast me. Unless I'm really hard on it, then it won't. And then lastly, I just really love the look of this. I love the aesthetic. Boy, is this a charming device. It is absolutely charming. I decided to make this video because I plan to do an entire strip down video and cleaning every bit and lubricating everything, so it's good for another 38 years of service, and or however long it's been. But I didn't want to have this rant in that video, so I'm getting it out of the way as its own video. I talk about how much I admire this era of tools, because, you know, there is something nice about the fact that they didn't have to waste a bunch of aluminum making this. It was a very resourceful thing, because refining production and using plastics was a wise idea. This thing is light compared to the ones I've held from the 50s and the 40s, by far. And it still has the same strength. So, I really was wanting a tool from that era. 1980 to 1997, something like that. And this is, as soon as I saw this, I wanted it. And then I see that there's a bunch more on eBay. You can get these for $35 easily, shipped to your door. So why would I ever buy one from Harbor Freight? Especially, even if there is no repair places around here that can service it, I can be that repair place. And it's designed to be repairable. This is one reason why I buy old tools. I don't like getting stuck in that mindset that old is better, because old isn't always better. If you buy something from the 40s, you're going to regret it probably, because it can be a lot heavier than stuff from now, and bulkier, and maybe not as powerful. Although it tends to be, after the 1930s, they got stuff pretty powerful. Just it was heavy. Older isn't always better, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it also looks better too. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. See ya.